everybody, and welcome to a brand new podcast, MS eDiscovery in Focus, with me, Ryan John Murphy. For those who don't know me, I am a former Microsoft MVP. I now work for Microsoft as a compliance TS in the United Kingdom. I'm a data security champion. I've been working in this space now for almost 10 years, working predominantly in Microsoft compliance, way back when it was literally just a bit of retention and a bit of e-discovery back in the Exchange portal, if anybody remembers that far back. And I am really looking forward to authoring and running this podcast with Heather, who's going to introduce herself in just a moment. And yeah, it's good to be here. Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather Eckman. I am a compliance technical specialist in financial services and insurance based out of Sacramento, California. I have over 20 years of experience in e-discovery, working for different consulting companies, service providers, and software companies. I'm also a certified e-discovery specialist and have a passion for all things e-discovery. I'm looking forward to working with Ryan on this podcast and talking about M365 eDiscovery.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, how did this come about, and why did me and Heather think to do this? Well, we're actually working on a book at the moment, MS eDiscovery in Depth, which Pact has been very good at giving us the opportunity to write this book. And with Heather and I working in the same vertical, we met up last year in Seattle and we instantly kicked off on talking about eDiscovery based on Heather's previous experience here at Microsoft and my previous experience and what I do on LinkedIn, on my blog and my other podcast, and of course with the book. And, this is going to be really down to getting on board with in-depth discussions, with new features, new updates with the product, of course, expert training sessions to enhance your skills. So Heather and I will go through on a deep dive level on some parts, and we will ensure that the audience knows if we're going into a deep dive or we're just going to give like what we call level 100, 200, which is kind of like a high level overview of eDiscovery. And then interviews with industry leaders and Microsoft insiders. So we have been very grateful to the product group because they've put their hand up to come on here and talk through their side of things from an engineering perspective and from a product perspective. And then, of course, tips and tricks to optimize your eDiscovery workflow. So helping you kind of working with the keyword query language, with the review set, with the data sources tab, with the holes. Essentially, it's giving you the opportunity to get the best out of Microsoft eDiscovery. Anything to add from your side, Heather? No? I said it all. I said it all in one go, did I? So I definitely think from our perspective, we wanted to do this podcast to basically share our insights on the product itself. And of course, having the ability to write an in-depth book is very, very daunting, very task and time consuming. And we just felt all the experiences that we built up and all the input that we've had from product group over the years would have been amazing inside of a book. But we know that the product changes quite a lot. And those who are consuming the book may have scenarios that they're working on today that they need a little bit of extra help on. And we're confident we can kind of cover them in the podcast. And to top it off, we're actually going to have a newsletter. And that newsletter is going to be published every month on LinkedIn. In the bio of this podcast, I'll put mine and Heather's LinkedIn and the MS eDiscovery in Focus page on there as well. So you can kind of link into that from that perspective. But I definitely think, given Heather's previous experience, given my previous experience, this should be your number one Microsoft eDiscovery podcast. Cool. I think, should we take a quick look at the new portal and see what it's all about? Because I think there's got to be a lot of people out there who have used the classic version. And now with the new version, there is a plethora of updates that we can go off. Now, I'm not going to go for every single one of them today, with Heather, what we're going to do is we're just going to give you kind of a look and feel around what does that new portal look like and what does that new portal mean for you. So I'm going to share my screen. We're just going to create just a very basic case, and then we can show you the new keyword query language, the new card builder, the new sources tab, the data sources tab, and some of those new elements that are in there. In upcoming episodes, of course, me and Heather are definitely going to go through creating a case end to end that includes putting the data into a review set, and I'll let Heather do her magic when it comes to the review set, and obviously exporting that data out. Should we do that now? Let's have a
Yeah,
look.
do it.
Okay, so let's take a quick look. So the new eDiscovery lives inside of the purview.microsoft.com world now. The compliance.microsoft.com will now be shut down this year. And also the classic version of eDiscovery. So if this is what you're using today, then essentially you will get this relink in here to put you back into cases from this perspective. Now, this is what the new world's going to look like. So as you can see, straight from the off, it's a single pane of glass. Now, people may be wondering why there's no eDiscovery Standard and no eDiscovery Premium. Well, in today's world, in the new world, I should say, there isn't really an eDiscovery Standard and eDiscovery Premium. There is an eDiscovery and an eDiscovery with premium features. So if I show you now what that looks like, so if we do an MS eDiscovery in focus, let me type down here in demo. This is the simplistic way now that you can create a case with. Feel free to come in at any point as well, Heather, as we go through this. So now you get this screen, okay? So up in the top left-hand corner, you've got searches, hold policies, review sets, exports, and then at the top right-hand corner, you've got case settings and post manager. So if you're used to seeing eDiscovery Premium, gone are the days now where you've got that mapping across that EDRM workflow, where you had data sources, collections, and so on and so forth. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, Heather, so feel free to come in and mention them.
Yeah, it was data sources, collections, review sets, legal holds, and there were a couple of other tabs for managing jobs and processes.
Yeah, processes, job, communications, they're all coming back to me now. So it's been a long time since I've looked at the old portal, you can tell. So the reason for doing this from a Microsoft perspective is purely to ensure that the user in the background is not clicking on multiple wizards all the time. We had quite a lot of feedback from people that were used to other eDiscovery tools that had like a single pane of glass where they could do everything within that single portal. Or even in fact, people that are new eDiscovery practitioners or paralegals or even HR people that were coming into solution and were just getting blown away with how much input you had to go into, getting lost in the weeds, as they say, to actually go through, even to get the actual data into a review set so you can actually start culling and denisting the data of what was in there, of course. So we've made this really simple now. Gone and multiple clicks. Now you can just do a lot more within a single click. So as you can see now, I'm straight into my case and I'm straight into a create a search. Now, let's take a quick look at the case settings in here. And you'll be able to see now, if you've got within your environment any E5 licenses enabled, this will be on by default. So the eDiscovery Premium tab will be on by default. That therefore means you need to be super cautious about when you're creating cases, because if you've got people within that case that are using an E5 license, great, they are licensed to go. But if you've got users in the E3 licensing model, they are not. And Heather, that's something that the old portal had as well, where you had one eDiscovery, sorry, beg your pardon, one M365 E5 license or compliance license, which enabled you to go and start an eDiscovery Premium case. But at least at that point, you had the differentiation between the two. I know you saw that a lot, right, Heather, in your background?
I did see that a lot. If one user has an E5 license, an eDiscovery Premium case can be, sorry, Um, sorry about that.
That's good.
If one user has an E5 license, an eDiscovery premium case can be created, and any user in the tenant can be put on hold. That's still the same in this case for now, so you want to be careful. If you are running premium features over E3 licenses, you're out of compliance on your licensing. So you just want to be sure that you understand who is licensed for E5 as compared to E3 or other licenses in M365.
Yeah, exactly. And to the latter, you've got a lot of, or if you only have E3 licenses in your environment, but you've used an E5 trial in the past, this will still come through as an eDiscovery Premium case. So what you can do, you can actually go into the settings and just untick this. This will then turn off all the eDiscovery Premium features in the background, as you can see here. So, review sets and so on and so forth from that perspective. I mean, me and Heather will go into this a lot more detail in future podcasts. But if you're in that position, make sure you're not out of license. Come in here and flick that eDiscovery Premium tab off. Now, luckily, in our demo environment, we are enabled for eDiscovery Premium. So I am going to enable those eDiscovery Premium features. One of the other things I like here is, of course, the ID in here, Heather. I know it was under the case settings previously, but for anybody who wanted to know, this is your case ID. So this ID here belongs to this case that I've just created. You can go and find that within the audit log. So if you wanted to see what custodians I added into there, or what holds I applied, or even what query I ran in this case, or even what roles-based access control groups I had. So if there's any compliance boundaries in there, or I'm working on a case and I wanted to bring Heather in to do some additional reviews with me, I'm able to see that activity. But you're going to need this particular case ID to go and find that. You can also use this case ID if you're using Sentinel as well. So if you've got an environment where Microsoft Sentinel is your SIEM, this ID here will also be visible in there. I simply just do a search and I search for this alphanumeric value here, and away it goes and finds me all of that data in a simple custom query language. Okay. All right. So then we've got your case name, your case number, and any information that you want to put in. Excuse me. And then you've got case status, which is active, and then the all important case creation date. Okay. A lot of people will come in and they'll update that case description based on, elements that they found or new custodians that they've added in there and so on and so forth as they're working their way through that case. I know, are you an active user of that as well, Heather?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah. So it's not a one and done. If you're doing it at the beginning, you can always come back in here and say, oh, today I removed Heather out, but I added Bill Gates in. You can keep that continuousness of that case management, if you like, in the background. And of course, you've got the all important button of close case or delete case. Okay. That's where we are with that. The permission side of it, as I mentioned before, it's got me in there because I was a case creator. So this works the same with eDiscovery Premium in the background with the classic version. You've still got that look and feel. Now, if I wanted to add in any role groups, let's say there is a compliance boundary out there that relies on roles-based access control groups, or let's say you're in different regions and there has to be a cross-region eDiscovery search. Let's say Heather is based in the US and I'm based in the UK. I then say, okay, there's actually elements in here, Heather, where I need somebody from the US to do a visualization on this data. Heather can be added in then, and I can add in the full America group, if you like, in the background. Data sources. So search additional data sources during tenant-wide searches. So you can actually set these as global settings, if you like, within this case. So you can say all people and groups, including licensed, on-premise, and guest users. All people and groups, including SharePoint, Teams channels, and departed users. Now, I'm very finicky when it comes to departed users. I always like to have that switched on, Heather, because I don't know if there's anybody in the background that's going to get looped into that. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree. That's something that I typically keep switched on because people are leaving organizations all the time. And I just think that that's a way to catch custodians or users that you're going to be searching.
Yeah, Absolutely. So there is a way that you can do that, having to go in every single time when you're running a search and saying, I want this on, I want this switched on, I want this switched on. You can come in here into data sources and switch this on. Another frequent user is the actual Teams channels. Again, not a lot of people know what channels people have belonged to in the past. So these two here are definitely worthwhile, especially if you've got a very busy joiners, movers, leavers process in your environment. Definitely come in here and have a look at these to see if you can switch these on. And then we've got search and analytics. So as before with the Discovery Premium, you can come in here and increase these thresholds. I like this to be about 85. Heather, what's your point?
Um, I tend to go more towards 65, but I think it really
Okay,
depends. I think
right.
it really depends on typically 65 to 80, depending on exactly what you're looking for. So, but I can go with your 85.
Just on this occasion, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then you've got themes, include theme numbers, so on and so forth. So this gives you ability to pull through those themes when you're pulling back threaded conversations and so on and so forth, which is really, really beneficial. Now, this is something, Heather, that I see a lot of customers not use and not understand the capability of this. But once you show them, they're like, I'm all in on this. What's your thoughts?
I agree. I think themes is something that a lot of users don't necessarily fully understand. Themes are kind of like concepts that are extracted. And then while it's not a super visual representation of clusters, there are ways that you can group themes together. So it's a way to be able to either pull out documents based on those common themes or um, pull out junk or be able to prioritize documents. So if you're dealing with a lot of data that you need to review, themes are a great way that you can prioritize and export or review.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, very good information. And then we've got minimum number of words. You got a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 500,000. Now, again, I think I've, in my experiences, this Heather, I think I've only ever seen this change maybe a handful of times at customers. I think, maybe down to, I saw this go down to three, but they was looking for something very, very specific at that point in time. What's your experiences on this?
Yeah, I usually don't see this changed unless it's a very specific use case.
Hmm.
So typically, this is something that's kept as is on
Okay.
most cases.
Yeah, amazing. Now, this next one, ignore text. This is something that I do see used frequently. And it's, for me personally, it's usually just pushing out people's signatures in their emails or repetitive text. Like if you're a manufacturing company, I've seen that before. We was working with a large automotive company a couple of years ago, and they kept getting back like car models and conceptual designs that they'd done for cars in the past. And this is a great way to filter out that data before you've even got it into the review set, which I think is a really, really good asset. What's your thoughts?
This will date me, but back in the scanning days, we used to call this standard language. So this would be like the standard disclaimers at the bottom of emails, standard language from a form or contract. And I think it's very useful if you are going to be collecting, whether they're emails or if you're collecting certain types of documents like forms and contracts.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Yeah. Same here. And then we've got OCR, optical character recognition. Enable that if you want to have some feasibility of looking for wordings within a image file, JPEG file. This again, I feel is I in my experiences have I've seen this used a lot with big litigations. So we where they don't really know how large the data set they're going to get back, and they just want that extra edge of information back. Smaller cases, like I work with a customer today running a data subjects right request. They didn't want to turn this on because obviously they're pinpointing specific data. What's your experience has been on this one?
That's exactly it. I've worked a lot on internal investigations, and I typically don't see OCR used in that case. But for larger litigations, I will see it used more. One thing I do want to note as well about these settings is depending on how you set them, it can affect the processing time. So
Hmm.
just be aware of that. And That's why we give the option on a case level instead of a global level. So if you do have a quick internal investigation, you don't have to worry about a bunch of data being OCR'd if you're looking for just a couple of emails or Teams messages.
Yeah, indeed. Great point. And just on that processing bit as well, when I do see this enabled, you have two options here. You have the low accuracy and higher accuracy. Now you will see the low accuracy when you flip between the two of them. The max image size and the OCR timeout seconds doesn't change. But what I have found with a higher accuracy, I've always bumped this up to 120 because I have seen in the past, because of that processing time in the background, Heather, because of that processing time going through that image, sometimes it can actually take more than a minute if it's like a big conceptual design, or you're working with an artifact. So that's a really large image. And I've seen it very rarely, extremely rarely, where it's timed out. So if you do go onto the hierarchy, just give yourself a little bit of a play in the background and just up those to maybe 60, 90, 120 seconds, just so you can get to a point where you're not timing out trying to get that data back. And then lastly, we've got review sets in the global settings. So you've got configure the grouping control for review sets. Turn off the control will still allow you to group items by family ID and conversation ID. I always use this. I really find the family ID, which is highlighted here, and the conversation ID very useful. And this is something that's coming to that you get in the review set, isn't it, Heather? That you can basically click on and go find any matching data, if you like.
Yep, absolutely. And I completely agree with you. This is something that I always turn on.
Yeah, amazing. So just to recap, if you're using all E3 users, then come in here and flick this off. This is on by default. Okay, if you've had an E5 license in your environment, or you have an E5 license in your environment, so we don't want you to be out of your terms and conditions when it comes to your licensing model. So just ensure whenever you make a case, come into the settings, come into the case details, and just make sure this is on or off depending on your need at the time. Right, amazing. We've also got this process manager up in the top right hand corner here, which is kind of taken over from the jobs tab that was in Classic eDiscovery. And as we go through this over the next few episodes, doing a bit of a deep dive, we'll actually come into here quite a lot so you can see what's happening within that particular case. So let's take a bit of a look now then, Heather, around creating what was a collection, but which is now just create a search. So if we now click on this, we now get to name our search. So I'm just going to type in here initial, if I can spell, initial search, and then down here, version 1. Right. So straight away, you can see that it's very different to what the old eDiscovery, what we're now calling the classic version. And now, this is, for me, a lot more intuitive and a lot more easier to use. And that's some of the feedback that I've had specifically from my customers, Heather. And I know you've had a very similar experience in your world across in the US.
Absolutely. Taking away a lot of the tabs and condensing things down has definitely made it easier. Being able to identify data sources that we'll take a look at. We've gotten a lot of great feedback.
Yeah, amazing for sure. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm just going to put a couple, maybe one example user in here just so we can kind of see where we're up to. But I'm just going to show you this around the screen first and foremost. So at the top, we've got the search tab. We've got the hold tab, we've got the review sets tab, and we've got the exports tab. So you can go between those wizards if you want to. For example, if
I
I was to
love this, by the way. Sorry to interrupt. I
no,
love this
no, go for it.
feature.
Yeah, me too, because I think I've got everything I need right in front of me now. I'm not having to click on other wizards. I'm not having to go deep dive, maybe 4 or 5 clicks into a wizard. I mean, with the old collections, it was great, but at the end of the day, if I could do everything from this screen, like I can add in now my data sources, all right? I now have the ability to say add tenant-wide sources. So if you've got like a massive case on, or you had a dawn raid and you just need to go in and grab it wherever you can do that from here. You've got your statistics, you've got your sample, all within that single pane of glass. Whereas before, to get to pretty much what's on that screen there, you're probably talking, what, 12 to 15 clicks, Heather, all in all? Yeah, this
Probably
can,
about that. There were a lot of clicks to get to that point.
yeah, so this is definitely going to save you time. And then, of course, at the top here, we've got the same button where we can add data sources. So let's do that now, just for an example purpose. And at the top here, you can essentially just typing in a name and then hit return, and it'll go and find that name. I'm just going to pick myself out for my own purposes here. But again, down the left-hand side here, you've got scope items by all sources in the tenant, which is default. And then you've got show for all people, all groups, people only groups, and exclude inactive users. So again, if you've enabled it in the background, but then you realize that you don't want all those inactive users on, you simply come here and just press inactive. Now, from a managed perspective, as you can see here, in the old data sources tab, the custodians tab, when they clicked on my name, it shows you like the OneDrive and the mailbox and so on and so forth. This does this when you select the manage piece now. So now I've selected my custodian, and now I can see at the top here, I've got mailboxes and I've got all information tab here. So it tells you exactly what it is that you're going to be able to get that data from, which I think, Heather, is a really, really good addition, because now I can see my mailbox stores my Outlook items, my Teams messages, my forms, and my Viva Engage. That gives you, the eDiscovery practitioner, or whomever you are using the solution, to understand your data landscape. If I'm looking for something and I just want Teams messages, I know I need that mailbox in there, and especially with Viva Engage as well being a hot topic at the moment. And then on the site's perspective, you've got files stored on OneDrive and SharePoint, Teams, File, Loop, Stream, and Whiteboard. So again, if you're looking something for a file or something that's unique, you can actually now see, okay, maybe I don't need to add on the OneDrive at this point. Maybe I can just go to the mailbox and pull what I need from the mailbox. But for this example, I'm just going to go through both. I now select my down button, and I can see straight away that I've got the right person and the right OneDrive account. And the reason why I really like this, Heather, and you've probably come across this many times as well, is people change name. People get married, people change their name for whatever reason. Now you can see, do I have the right OneDrive?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm. And I really, really like that. And of course, if you've got multiple users in here or multiple sites, let's say, for example, you tag a SharePoint site, it's going to show all channels mapped to that SharePoint site, even if it's a private one. That's going to show you in there as well. And don't worry, Heather and I will do a deep dive into this in the upcoming episodes. So I'm happy with what I've got now. I'm happy with my custodian there. And I'm just going to press save. Now I've got my custodian, and I can see straight away that I've still got the emblems there of the Microsoft product set. Now, you get a lot more options now within the user options piece and the explore and add piece. We have the manage data source, which of course will allow me to manage it. You can have the disable mailboxes for this particular user. So if they're inactive or they've had a disable mover, let's say they've moved from one data sovereign region into another data sovereign region, you wouldn't really want them to take that mailbox with them. So you would just disable it and then give them a new mailbox in that new region. Or if they've been promoted in some way. You've got disabled sites again. So it will kind of look through and see what sites you've got, whether they're the OneDrive sites that we were just talking about before, if you've had a name change. You got manager, so you can actually pull through who that particular person's manager is. So if you need an in-depth conversation with them, or they need to be brought into this case, then they can do. Direct reports, frequent collaborators. Now, this for me is a really good addition, I think, Heather, because when you click on this, and I'll do that now, this will go away in the background and bring through all of those frequent collaborators when it comes to that particular custodian. That in its sense, in one aspect, could save you time looking for those. But I have seen a customer go on and just select all of these and confuse the hell out of her case because it's not really what she was looking at. So I guess it's great if you need it, but try not to complicate things too much. Hey, what do you think, Eva?
I think that this is great for helping identify additional custodians for litigation, also with investigations to see who a particular user is collaborating with and talking to. I agree with you. I would, instead of just clicking select all, I would go through and look at who is coming up in this list. determine if you want to add them. You might find some people in here that your user or custodian is collaborating with that you really had no idea about. So I see this not just as a way to run e-discovery searches, but again, a way to bubble up that communication that's happening with users and get some different insights into that particular user.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely spot on. Um, okay, so and then next in line, you've got groups the user owns. So this is a really good one because beforehand, you would have to keep some type of itinerary or ledger of all of this information that we've got now within the user options and explore and add. And the same with groups the user is in. So again, if you're looking for something specific, you can now come into here and use the additional tools or the new tools, I should say, within the user's options to go and find that additional data or those collaborators within it. Now, let's take a look at the conditions builder here. So you've got conditions builder and then search by file. So we'll take a look at this one first and foremost. So straight away, Heather, you get a keyword prompt. So you can now jump into there and start looking for anything that's relevant to yourself, litigation. I press return. I can then add in Apple and Orange and I press return. And all these are all created. And you can see kind of up in the top left-hand corner here, my query is actually spelled out for me in the keyword query language. So not only do I have the visibility to do this from a visual perspective within the card builder, I can also see the query at the top. Now, I'm a stickler for if I build it out in the conditions building and I know it works, I come up here, grab this and save it off into my own keyword query language library that I've got local to me. Do you do the same, Heather?
Do the same thing. Yes.
Yeah. And look, when you come back into here, it's going to give you the ability to go, okay, well, I kind of know what I'm looking for because I've got my KQL query. I just need to amend it to that custodian in that case and those keywords and those date ranges and so on and so forth. So straight away, you're able to use that. Now, plus conditions, within here now, you've now got the options on the left-hand side to show all, show common, which is the top 14, show anything to do with Exchange, online mailboxes, and show anything to do with SharePoint on OneDrive. Now, I think these two specifically, Heather, are going to be a huge, huge advantage to customers when they're using eDiscovery because and I know we spoke about this in the past, I am always running into customer meetings where they're having issues and they don't really know what those conditions are for in the background, and it's really polluting that data set when they're trying to do that search. And I know you've had the same experiences, right?
Yeah, I have, and I think with coming from an e-discovery background, searching live data in M365 is a little different, and it takes some time to get used to. So having this really helps. I know what conditions to use, and I think this is something on a later episode. Would be good to go more in detail with.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely do a deep dive into this for sure, because I think these new conditions are well within the remit for people to just come in here and just select. And look, and I think there's obviously some new ones in here like retention label, and then we've also got sensitive information types and sensitivity labels. We've also got a message ID in here as well. So not gone are the days, Heather, where you're having to write the full message ID out as a keyword and put it into quotes and so on and so forth to try and find that information. And then, of course, I really do think what's been added in here is such a benefit. And of course, you've got the keyword query language at the top as well. So if you're comfortable and you know the keyword query language well, you can simply click on this. And I'm going to click on date as well, just to give you an example of both. Yep. So what we can do is, as you saw, then he asked me if I wanted to translate what I had into a keyword query language. So if I at one point want to be able to build out a conditions builder because I don't really know which KQL conditions to use, I can come in here and I can essentially say, I'm going to build it out with a card builder, go to KQL and convert it myself, and then I can still work on it. I can now add information in here like this, or if I'm adding an or statement in, or if I'm adding, new values in, like subject and title, so on and so forth, then I can do that and start to explore and start to build out the KQL query as much as I really want. An important thing is this hasn't gone away, but it's a bit more intuitive now when it comes to the actual potential syntax errors because it gives you a description. Okay. No longer did it just give you the error, it gives you a description of why that could be wrong. And I know we spoke about this one before as well, Heather, and the fact that it was good to have the syntax errors, but sometimes the customer would come back if they've got a big query and there'd be like a number of them that I've read and they've not remembered to put a bracket in or speech marks in and so on and so forth. So to have this now as an explanation, I feel is more intuitive for the person who's in the background to learn keyword query language a little bit quicker.
I completely agree. Again, I use this all the time in premium. And while I would know where those syntax errors were, I didn't always know why. So I think that this is great. And like you said, I also think that this is a great way to be able to learn the PQL syntax a lot quicker. And I feel like once you learn it, especially if you're doing things like investigations where you're running some of those queries over and over again and they're quite common, it just becomes easy to come in here, type out that query, and you're good to go.
Spot on. Yeah, I completely agree. I really like it. I always gravitate to keyword query language, but in the initial days, I didn't. I literally relied on the conditions builder here to build out what I was wanting. And let's take the date one, for example. If we come into here now, you've still got that same look and feel, Heather. So you can do an and or an or Boolean statement. You can click on the actual before, after, in between. I see the between used a lot because if you're doing searches, you've got a large environment, then you don't have to bring everything back. But I love the little calendar now that comes up and you can just essentially select on what it is that you want to look for. Same with on this side as well. But of course, on top of that, if I wanted to add some multiple elements in here, I can just come essentially either click this drop down box here, which gives me the most frequently one used. Okay, so I'm going to click participants now and I can come into here and I can type in Ryan in here. But again, I've got this and an or Boolean statement here that I can take use of. And as you saw, then it comes up with the relevant lookup within the actual Active Directory, Azure Directory and Enter ID now, where you can find that. But also you've got here two field or chat participants in a Teams conversation. So it's actually now presenting you in the background of that particular element that you choose from the actual conditions builder, what it's used for. Enter a keyword or phrase and then press enter. Repeat for an additional keywords. That again, I think is very, very intuitive for people to ensure that they're collecting and selecting the right keywords. What do you think, Heather?
I like this. It, like you said, helps you select the right keywords. Just being able to enter a keyword and hit enter without having to make sure you're putting in or in all capitals, or I just think that this makes it a lot easier and straightforward.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it gives you confidence as well, being a eDiscovery practitioner or any type of investigator, to know that you've actually got this potentially right on the first round. Sometimes you can go 4 or 5 rounds with the old KQL builder to understand, oh, have I got that right? Did I miss anything off? Am I actually getting what I need? So I think this is a great input from the team. And of course, I'll just add in here some information. And of course, as well, you get the ability to search by file as well. So if I come over to here, you can actually do, look for this type of file, look for this type of information in the file, so on and so forth. Whereas before, again, something I saw a lot of people get wrong is actually searching by file. They wouldn't really know how to link it down. Let's say, for example, Heather, if you wanted to do, a look of, a lot of PDF files, then people would type PDF into the keyword that I noticed a lot rather than using the file type equals PDF. Did you come across that a lot?
I came across that quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. So I definitely think the way we have this right now is so much more intuitive for a person to go through it and start understanding, okay, I know my data sources. I know what my query needs to be. And I've got so much more help now from Microsoft because I can either click this add sign here and get all 28 conditions, or I can get this drop down box here. Now, what I will say is that these conditions under here, under the 28, they're not everything and everything, because within the actual the keyword query language, you can use other elements as well, which Heather and I are going to go through. So if you want to do a near type of lookup where you want to find certain information near each other within a Word document, or you want to subtract Heather. So if you don't want to put, bring through Heather Ekman's email from, or even I see this used a lot for distribution groups and N365 shared groups and so on and so forth. Because let's say, for example, you have a team called Team Legal, and you know that emails out to Heather quite a lot, but you don't want to include that in the search, of course, because you know that's not relevant to the eDiscovery case. Then you can come in here and start doing nots with that as well. So NOTs, as in, I do not want this information, or I want you to filter this information out as well. And again, me and Heather will be doing a deep dive. And within the book that we've wrote, MS eDiscovery in Depth, there is a whole chapter dedicated to keyword query language. Some of my experience of using that, some of the most frequently used keyword query language that I have created, and Heather shared our own as well within there. So when we want to run this, we simply come up here and click run. Okay, or you can save as a draft. All right, so if you want to save this as a draft and you want to come back to it at a later point, you don't have to stop that collection now. Whereas the previous eDiscovery experience, you either had to leave it where it is, where a majority of the time it would just time out, and you go back to it and your work is lost. But within here now, you can save it as a draft, and you can use that as many times as you want. Okay, so I think as an intro, I think that's pretty much all we wanted to go through today. But the next episode is absolutely going to be packed. We're going to go through a full case. We're going to start doing a full case end to end over the next few episodes with myself and Heather. So stick around and stay tuned for that. And obviously look out for the newsletter. And if you like what you see today and you want to see more, please give us a like and subscribe. We would really appreciate that. Or even if you wanted to come on and share your experiences with Microsoft eDiscovery, please do that. We're more than willing to have you on. So it's great seeing you all. Thanks from myself.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.